Hello, welcome to John's Author Diary for the weekend in October the 28th, 2018. This week has been half term, so my son and wife have been at home. So it's basically been a scheduled week off for me. I've not done much in the way of work. I've done a few fiddly admin tasks and marketing tasks and things like that. But in terms of writing, I've added nothing this week. I've been thinking a lot about NaNoWriMo. This is National Novel Writing Month. And I've decided finally that this year I'm not going to do it. I've got into a really good routine writing my Ravenglass Chronicles series. So I'm just going to keep on writing those. And okay, I've got 16 more books to do in that series. But that is where my mind is at. That is where my focus is. So I'm just going to keep on with that series, with the aim of writing the last novella before the end of 2019. So I've been reading a non-fiction book this week called The One Thing, which I think has really helped me to focus my ideas and to think about what it is I actually want to do as an author. And for the foreseeable future, I'm just going to keep writing fantasy. I'll probably still be writing science fiction short stories as part of the Otaku One Writing podcast, but my primary focus going forward is going to be writing fantasy fiction. I have my current series that I'm working on, the Ravenglass Chronicles. I then have another series planned in the same world. And I've got another series that I've been thinking a lot about as well that isn't in the same world, but it is still well within the fantasy realm. I suppose having the week off has given me a time to reflect and to think about what I want to do over the next 3 to 5 years. And I don't think that the scattergun approach of writing a bit of post-apocalyptic here, a game-lit novel here, I'm trying to convince myself that I'm writing in the same genre, that they all just fall under this speculative fiction umbrella. Okay, that works for me. But when I'm thinking about it in terms of readers, I know a lot of readers go, okay, I read epic fantasy, but I don't read urban fantasy. Or they'll say I'll read military science fiction, but I don't read dystopian. So I know that my tribe are other fantasy readers. I could talk about fantasy books all day, and to be honest, I usually do. So what this means is I need to start shifting my visual brand as an author. So a lot of my branding on my website and things like that has been focused on promoting the Wasteland series. Now I'm going to consider that series has run its course. It is still selling, which is great. Had a really good month this month in terms of sales. But in terms of my writing and the things that I want to say as an author and the type of themes that I want to work with, I've got to focus on John Cronshaw, fantasy author. So that should have been obvious to me because I'm usually a very self-reflective person, but here we are. So as well as reading The One Thing, I got about 20% through the Mad Ship book by Robin Hobb, and I abandoned it. I was talking last week about the writing, and it was just too much. It detracted from the story. I've read her books before. I really enjoyed her Farseer series. Now, this is set in the same world, but all of the characters are whiny, and the writing is just terrible. Really, really bad. Now, if you're training to become an author, let me just say that you don't need to have an adverb after every single dialogue tag. You don't need an adverb after every movement. You don't need to explain stuff that people already know in the story and that the reader already knows as a reminder. I felt that it was, a 33-hour audiobook, so I think this could have been easily chopped in half by just getting rid of a lot of the waffle, a lot of the fluff, a lot of the over-description. It felt like trying to walk through thick mud, and I rarely abandon books. So that was abandoned, and now I've moved on to reading Making Money by Terry Pratchett, which is well written, so that's good. So I've started watching the second series of Making a Murderer on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen the first one of this, but this is basically a bit of a true crime story about someone who is believed to have been framed for a murder. In fact, the guy was framed for a murder and served, I think it was 20 years in prison. He came out and then he was framed for another murder and he was sent to prison for that. And so for this second series, I've got some super lawyer, and it's very reminiscent of an episode of Mythbusters. So there's a lot of reenactments and picking apart every bit of evidence that the prosecution put before the court. So in terms of storytelling, I just think that it's really compelling. And I would highly recommend it if you're interested in that kind of thing. It's a bit like Serial, which I'm also enjoying a new series of that, which is the podcast, which is following a courthouse in Ohio for a year. So I did actually get a question this week, but I've already answered it. It was about NaNoWriMo, so no, I'm not doing it this year. So remember, you can follow me on Twitter. It's at JL Cronshaw. I am also on Instagram at John Cronshaw Author. If you haven't done so already, please do check out The Fool, which is the first book in my Ravenglass Chronicles series. Now, I'm changing the links on my books because I realised that the tiny URL links were only sending people to Amazon.com. So it's geni.us/Ravenglass. So until next time, cheerio.